Okay, so this is part one of color schemes. This is how we're going to start our new unit in color theory. So the first thing I want to do right here is, do you see this color wheel that's up here? It's a 12 color wheel. That's what we're going to be talking about for this unit, 12 color wheel. And you can see up there on the wall, there's an example. There's also an example posted on Google Classroom. So the first thing I want to do is just color in the color wheel as you see it in the picture on Google Classroom, or as you see it on the wall in the art room here. So in this one, we've got yellow at the top, and then we've got spaced apart 3. Then we have our next primary color, which is blue. And then if you go skip 3, 1, 2, 3, then right there you've got red. And that's just the easiest way to do it. The next 3 colors, you do those secondary colors, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about primary, secondary, the tertiary, and complementary. But for now, we're just going to fill in the color wheel just for a reference. So the next one, in between the yellow and the blue, we're going to fill in that with just the straight up green. In between the blue and the red, we're going to fill that in with purple or violet. And I'm not doing my best coloring job, just enough to have a decent reference here. Red, in between red and yellow is going to be the orange. And in the middle are what we call tertiary colors. They're the hyphenated ones. So I'm going to start with my orange and yellow. I'm just going to put down just a really light layer of yellow. And then on top of that layer, a really light layer of orange. And then I'm going to just kind of go back and forth until I have a pretty decent yellow-orange that I'm working with. And that's how you blend colored pencils. Now for this next, I'm going to call this a mega project because it is a big project. We're not going to be working with colored pencils. We're going to be working with paint. So it'll be a little bit, there's pros and cons to that. It'll be a little easier, a little bit harder to mix in different ways. Okay, I'm just going to go time lapse this and finish up my color wheel. Okay, we're back after doing that initial coloring of the color wheel. Remember, that is on Google Classroom too, as far as a reference, 12 color wheel. Okay, so next, let's talk about primaries. You guys haven't probably talked about this since elementary school. So I'm going to get my 3 primaries, blue, red, yellow. The first thing I want you guys to do, just like how we started the color wheel example up here, I know blue is this one here. So I'm going to color that. I know yellow is this one here. Color that. And then red, 1, 2, 3. They're 3 apart, those primaries. Right there. And then in this box, some years I have people like do designs. Again, it doesn't have to be like the best design or whatever. It's just kind of, this is for your reference. It will make your life easier in future when we're doing your paintings. Paintings plural. It's a nice, easy reference to have. So just do whatever doodly design you want to do using those 3 primary colors. Again, it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It's just for reference. Sometimes I might even take a regular pencil. Now primaries are pretty obvious what they are. I don't think anybody would really forget that. but sometimes I just jot down some notes. Okay, next one, secondary colors. We've got violet, green, and orange. Now kind of pay close attention to where these land on the little sample color wheel here. Refer to the diagram up above or the one on Google Classroom. I'm going to start with violet. I've got my blue here, I've got my red here. My violet is this one and this one. And again, secondary colors, again, are 3 apart, if that's making sense to you guys. So I've got my blue violet, blue, blue green, green. All right, the intermediate colors are, they're called intermediate or tertiary, it's the same thing. They're the hyphenated ones that you see on the color wheel. So they are like the red orange, the violet blue, those ones. So what you really have to do here, again, pay attention. I'm just gonna mark where my blue is, right here. Just gonna kind of orients me on the color wheel. Right next to it, if I go to the left, I know that's gonna be blue-violet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna lay down a really light layer of just straight up blue and layer in some violet on top of that. It's gonna be a little bit different in paint. You're gonna get a much more accurate color in paint. This is just a sample. And if you just squint a little bit, this is what I found. If you just squint a little bit and you're like, oh, it's too blue, roll a little bit more violet in there. Just pay attention to where things go. So go slowly and do this. So my next one I just marked is gonna be violet. And I know red is here. My next tertiary or intermediate color is gonna be red violet. So it takes a little bit of blending. I think it's fun. Squint a little bit. It's like, okay, is it a little bit too much red? Work in a little bit more violet. All right, and then we're just gonna go right around the horn, do a design in the rectangle, and list out the tertiary colors. And that's how that gets done. All right, so the next one we have to talk about is complementary colors. Complementary are those colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So you can just see here in my sample color wheel up at the top, I just labeled what each color was because it's a little hard to see with the colored pencil. It's not as accurate as I would like. So for example, the first complementary pair, yellow and violet, that's a complementary pair across from each other on the color wheel. The next pair, blue and orange, they are across from each other on the color wheel. The next pair, red and green, those are across from each other on the color wheel. The other thing you might notice about the complementary colors, one is a primary, one is a secondary. Now, you can do split complementary color scheme. That is part 2 of the color scheme, so don't worry about that right now. But blue, green, and red, orange, yes, they are complementary colors, but more commonly, the pairings are much more simple. One primary color to one secondary color. Red, green, yellow, violet, orange, and blue. So let's fill those in at the bottom where it says complementary. You could go blue and orange, yellow, and purple, or violet, however you want to say. And the final one would be blue, orange, yellow, purple. What am I missing here, you guys? Thank you. Green and red. And you'll see these a lot. You know, this one always reminds you of Christmas, of course, the green and the red. Yellow and purple, blue and orange. These are color schemes that we see a lot in with like athletic sports teams. And the reason that is because whenever you put complementary colors next to each other, it kind of eludes motion, action. It alludes to energy. So that's why a lot of pro sports teams use complementary colors or complementary color scheme-ish, like it might be like one off, is because it alludes to energy. All right, so we'll fill this in too.